Most people think modern finance was born in London or New York. They point to the Bank of England in 1694 or Wall Street in the 1800s. That story is a fiction. The real machinery was engineered 5 centuries earlier in a swamp. Venice had no farmland, no forests, no iron, no coal, no natural resources at all. The city sat on wooden pilings driven into a lagoon. It should have starved. Instead, it became the wealthiest state in Europe for 400 years. Not through luck, not through conquest, through financial engineering. Between 1000 and 1500 CE, Venice built the institutional infrastructure of every modern economy. The limited liability investment contract, the sovereign bond market, the central bank, double entry accounting, flow production management. These were not incremental improvements. They were structural inventions. They turned capital into leverage, leverage into control, control into untouchable power. Oil didn't make Venice powerful. Venice had no oil. What it had was the ability to move other people's money across distances those people could not cross themselves. That created the bottleneck. Once you control the bottleneck, you control the split. Venice engineered the split better than any state before it. Welcome to Noob Historian. We follow the money, trace the power, and expose the history they never taught you in school. Here is why this matters to you right now. Every government bond your country issues today follows the Venetian template from 1262. Every central bank intervention during a financial crisis uses the playbook Venice wrote in the 1300s. Every corporate limited liability structure descends directly from a contract Venetian merchants signed on the Rialto in the year 1073. The blueprint is 800 years old. The machinery is still running. And the people who understand the machinery still end up owning the people who do not. This is the story of how a city with no resources became a bank, and how that bank built the operating system your economy runs on today. In 1073, a Venetian merchant named Giovanni stood at the docks with a ship full of cloth headed for Constantinople. He needed 200 silver ducats to fill the hold. He did not have it. In most medieval cities, that ended the voyage. In Venice, it started a contract. Giovanni walked to a notary near the Rialto and wrote an agreement with a widow named Elena. She put up the 200 ducats. He took the ship east. When he returned, they split the profit 50-50. If the ship sank, Elena lost her money. Giovanni lost his time. Neither owed the other anything beyond that. This was the Colleganza. It had 3 features that made it different from every other commercial arrangement in medieval Europe. First, limited liability. If the venture failed, the investor lost only the capital contributed. No personal bankruptcy, no debtor's prison, no blood debt. The loss was contained. That meant you risked your money, not your life. Second, proportional return. The split was fixed by contract, not by status or guild membership. A noble and a baker got the same terms if they put up the same cash. The return was tied to the investment, not the investor. Third, transferability. The contract was written down, witnessed, and filed. That meant it was enforceable by the state. It also meant you sold your share to someone else before the ship returned. The contract became an asset. The asset became liquid. Liquidity became a market. By 1150, Venice had notarial records of hundreds of these contracts per year. By 1200, thousands. The archives in the Archivio di Stato di Venezia contain 969 surviving agreements from 1021 to 1261. Scholars have cataloged 435 distinct Colleganza contracts involving 547 named individuals. These were not just merchants. The records show nuns, priests, bakers, and craftsmen all supplying capital. This was venture capital 900 years before Silicon Valley, and it was open to everyone with cash. Here is what made it work. Venice did not enforce these contracts with courts or laws the way a modern state does. Medieval states did not have the capacity. Instead, Venice used a different mechanism: monopoly rents. The Venetian state controlled all access to the eastern trade routes. If you wanted to trade with Constantinople, Alexandria, or the Levant, you went through Venetian-controlled ports, or you did not go at all. The state granted those access rights only to merchants in good standing. If you defaulted on a Colleganza contract, the state pulled your trading privileges. You lost access to the entire eastern Mediterranean. That made honoring your contract worth more than stealing the capital. The system was self-enforcing, and it scaled. By 1268, Doge Raniero Zeno died holding 132 active Colleganza contracts at once. His personal wealth was split across 132 simultaneous voyages to different ports. That is portfolio diversification. That is hedging. That is a risk management strategy identical in structure to a modern private equity fund. The Colleganza turned Venice into a city where capital moved faster than goods. You did not need to own a ship to profit from the voyage. You did not need to sail to earn a return. You needed money and a notary. That was the entry price. And thousands of Venetians paid it. This was the first mass capital market in European history. It lasted for 200 years. Then, Venice killed it. In 1171, the Byzantine Empire seized all Venetian merchants and cargo in Constantinople without warning. Venice lost an entire year of trade in one day. The Republic needed ships, it needed soldiers, it needed money immediately, so the government did something no European state had done before. It borrowed from its own citizens by force. The Venetian Great Council passed a law. Every citizen with assets above a threshold had to lend the state money. The rate was set, the loan was compulsory, there was no opt-out. This was a forced loan, and it was legal because the state said so. Other Italian cities had tried forced loans before, but Venice added two features that changed everything. First, the loan paid interest, 5% per year. That made it an obligation, not a confiscation. The state owed you money, the debt was recorded, it was a liability on the public books. Second, the loan was transferable. If you were forced to lend the state 100 ducats but needed the cash, you sold the obligation to someone else. The debt became an asset. The asset had a price. The price moved based on supply and demand. On March 12, 1262, the Venetian Great Council took this system and formalized it. All outstanding forced loans were consolidated into a single instrument called the Monte Vecchio. It was a perpetual bond. It paid 5% annual interest forever. It never matured, and it traded on the open market. This is the first documented sovereign bond in European history. The Bank for International Settlements confirmed this in a June 2025 speech. The Bank of England's 2017 research paper, 8 Centuries of the Risk-Free Rate, uses Venetian Prestiti yields starting in 1262 as the opening data point in their 800-year interest rate series. The Venetian bond market was not a side experiment. It became the structural foundation of state finance. By 1300, the Monte Vecchio held over 1 million ducats in outstanding debt. By 1400, over 3 million. The entire fiscal operation of the Venetian state ran on bond issuance. Here is how it worked in practice. You were a Venetian merchant. The state levied a forced loan of 500 ducats on you. You did not have the cash. So you borrowed from a banker at 8% interest, lent it to the state at 5%, then immediately sold your bond on the Rialto market at a discount to raise the cash to pay back the banker. You lost money on the spread, but you avoided default. The system stayed liquid. The bond price moved every day. When Venice won a war, bond prices rose. When Venice lost a war, bond prices fell. The market was a real-time indicator of state solvency. Investors tracked it. Foreigners tracked it. Enemy states tracked it. The bond market became an information system, and it created a new class, rentiers, people who lived off bond interest without working. By 1400, some Venetian families held bond portfolios worth tens of thousands of ducats. They lived off the 5% yield. They never touched the principal. They passed the bonds to their children. This was generational wealth built on state debt. The bond market also created a feedback loop. The more the state borrowed, the more bondholders had an interest in the state surviving. If Venice collapsed, the bonds were worthless. So bondholders funded wars to protect their portfolios. The debt became self-reinforcing. This is the same loop every modern government runs today. The U.S. Treasury market, Japanese government bonds, European sovereign debt. The structure is identical: forced lending through taxation, transferable obligations, secondary markets, yields that move with state risk, rentier classes that live off the interest. Venice did not invent debt. Every state in history borrowed money. Venice invented the machinery to make debt liquid, transferable, and permanent. That machinery is still running, and it is still the biggest market in the world. In 1320, Venice controlled the richest trade routes in Europe. Spices from Alexandria, silk from Constantinople, grain from the Black Sea. These routes generated millions of ducats per year. But Venice did not own the cargo. It owned the infrastructure. The Venetian state built the ships, owned the ships, operated the ships, and auctioned the right to use the ships to private merchants under strict terms. This was not privatization. This was state capitalism with profit extraction built into the contract. The system worked through the Incanto. This was a public auction held twice per year. The state announced the routes: Alexandria, Beirut, Flanders, the Black Sea. Each route had a fixed number of galleys assigned to it. Merchants bid for the right to load cargo on those galleys. The winning bidder paid the state a fee up front. Then the merchant paid again for tonnage. Then the merchant paid crew wages, which the state fixed. Then the merchant paid port fees at state-controlled docks. And the state extracted value at 4 separate points in the same voyage. But the merchant still made money. Why? Because the Venetian state guaranteed 3 things. First, security. Venetian war galleys escorted the trade convoys. Pirates did not attack state-protected fleets. That meant lower risk. Lower risk meant higher volumes. Higher volumes meant lower per-unit costs. Second, schedule. The galley convoys left on published dates and returned on published dates. Merchants planned their capital around the calendar. Predictability reduced uncertainty. Reduced uncertainty increased investment. Third, exclusive access. If you won the Incanto for the Alexandria route, no other Venetian merchant competed with you on that route that season. The state enforced the monopoly. You paid for access, you got protection, you kept the margin. This was vertical integration at the state level. Venice did not tax trade. It owned the infrastructure trade moved through. It charged rent for access. It skimmed the margin at every layer, and it kept the system closed. The backbone of the system was the Venetian arsenal. This was not a shipyard. It was the first industrial production complex in European history. At its peak in the 1500s, the arsenal employed over 2,000 workers. It operated on a flow production model, standardized parts, sequential assembly, division of labor. A galley moved down a canal. At each station, a team installed a component, hull, rigging, oars, armament. The process was timed, the workflow was managed, the output was measurable. In 1574, when King Henry III of France visited Venice, the arsenal assembled and launched a fully armed galley in the time it took him to finish a state dinner. 1 galley in under 2 hours. Galileo Galilei visited the arsenal in 1594 to study its operations. He wrote about it. The arsenal became the model for every industrial process that followed. Flow production, interchangeable parts, state management of labor, cost accounting. The arsenal's account books survive. Scholars have analyzed them. They show cost breakdowns by component. Labor time per galley, material costs per unit, inventory tracking, capital depreciation. This was management accounting 2 centuries before the Industrial Revolution. The galley system gave Venice control over the physical flow of goods, but the arsenal gave it control over the production of the infrastructure itself. Venice did not depend on foreign shipbuilders. It built its own fleet. It maintained its own fleet. It controlled the throughput. That control became a bottleneck. If you wanted to move high-value cargo between Europe and the eastern Mediterranean, you used Venetian galleys, or you took a risk no rational merchant would take. The state owned the safest route. It set the price, and it collected the rent. This is the same model Amazon uses today. Amazon does not sell most of the products on its platform. It owns the infrastructure those products move through. It charges sellers for access. It extracts data. It controls the customer relationship. The structure is identical: state ownership of infrastructure, private operation under state terms, profit extraction at multiple points. Exclusive access is the incentive. Venice built this model 700 years ago. It still runs the most valuable companies in the world. In 1297, the Venetian Great Council passed a law. From that year forward, only men whose families had held council seats in the previous 4 years were eligible for election. In 1323, the law was tightened. Membership became hereditary. The list was closed. The door was locked. This was the Serrata del Maggior Concilio, the closure of the Great Council. It turned Venice from an inclusive merchant republic into a closed hereditary oligarchy, and it destroyed the institutional engine that had made Venice rich. Before the Serrata, Venetian political power was tied to economic success. If you made money in trade, you gained political access. If you gained political access, you influenced the rules. The rules favored people who made money in trade. The loop reinforced itself. Economic inclusion created political inclusion. Political inclusion protected economic inclusion. The Colleganza was the mechanism. A baker who invested in a successful trading voyage made money. With money came status. With status came entry into the merchant class. With merchant status came eligibility for the Great Council. The system was open, it was competitive, and it was self-reinforcing. The Serrata broke the loop. After 1323, it did not matter how much money you made. If your family was not on the list, you were locked out. The Great Council shrank from over 1,000 eligible members to a fixed, hereditary class of around 200 families. Those families became the Venetian nobility. Everyone else became subjects. The economic effects were immediate. The Colleganza market collapsed. Why? Because the old system depended on political access as the reward for economic success. If you invested capital and made money, you moved up. You got closer to power. You influenced trade policy. That was the incentive. After the Serrata, there was no movement. You were born noble or you were not. Your capital bought you income, but it did not buy you power. The incentive to invest in risky long-distance trade disappeared. The Colleganza contracts that had numbered in the thousands per year dropped to dozens. The capital markets froze. The nobles did not stop trading. They kept the trade routes. They kept the galley monopolies. But they stopped sharing access. They stopped competing with outsiders. They stopped innovating. They extracted rents from the system their grandparents had built. They did not build new systems. By 1400, Genoa had overtaken Venice in the western Mediterranean. By 1500, Portuguese and Spanish explorers had opened direct ocean routes to Asia, bypassing the Venetian-controlled eastern Mediterranean entirely. By 1600, Venice was a second-tier regional power. By 1797, when Napoleon dissolved the Republic, Venice was a museum. The decline took 500 years, but the cause was institutional. The Serrata turned an open system into a closed one. It turned competition into extraction. It turned innovation into rent collection. And it killed the economy from the inside. This is the central case study in Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson's research on institutional economics. Their 2014 paper in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, International Trade and Institutional Change, Medieval Venice's Response to Globalization, uses Venice as the primary historical example of how inclusive institutions drive growth and extractive institutions drive decline. The Venetian nobility made a choice. They chose short-term security over long-term growth. They locked in their political power. They locked out economic competition. They turned the state into a machine that served 200 families instead of 200,000 people, and the machine stopped producing wealth. This is the same choice every oligarchy makes. Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union, Mexico under the PRI, South Africa under apartheid. A small group captures the state. They rewrite the rules to protect their position. They extract wealth instead of creating it. The economy stagnates. The state weakens. Rivals overtake them. Venice proves the pattern. Inclusive institutions built the wealth. Extractive institutions consumed it. The Serrata was the moment the switch flipped, and everything that followed was decay. In 1584, Venice faced a crisis. Private banks were failing, depositors were losing money, merchants were pulling cash out of the system, credit was freezing, the entire payment system was seizing up. So the Venetian state did something no government had done before. It opened a bank. The Banco della Piazza di Rialto began operations in 1587. It was not a private institution. It was a public bank, owned and operated by the Venetian government. It accepted deposits, it cleared payments, it held reserves, and it stabilized the monetary system. This was the first public deposit bank in European history. It was the institutional ancestor of every central bank in the world today. Before the Rialto Bank, Venice had dozens of private banks. These were family operations. They took deposits. They made loans. They facilitated payments between merchants. And when they failed, they took depositor money with them. The first major failure was the Pisani Bank in 1584, then the Tiepolo Bank, then others. Each failure triggered a run on the remaining banks. Depositors demanded cash. Banks could not meet the demand. They closed their doors. The payment system broke. Venetian merchants depended on bank transfers to settle transactions. You sold cloth to a buyer in Flanders. The buyer's bank transferred credit to your bank. Your bank credited your account. You used that credit to pay your supplier. The whole system depended on trust that the banks would honor the transfers. When the banks failed, the trust disappeared. Merchants stopped accepting bank credit. They demanded cash. But there was not enough cash in circulation to settle all the transactions. Trade froze. The Venetian state stepped in. The Rialto Bank offered a guarantee. Deposits at the Rialto Bank were backed by the full faith and credit of the Venetian Republic. If you deposited money at the Rialto Bank, the state guaranteed you got it back. That guarantee changed the game. Merchants moved their deposits from private banks to the Rialto Bank. The Rialto Bank became the center of the payment system. Transactions cleared through Rialto accounts. The bank held reserves. It settled balances. It provided liquidity. This is exactly what a central bank does. It acts as the bank for other banks. It provides a stable payments infrastructure. It holds reserves. It intervenes when private institutions fail. It stabilizes the system. The Rialto Bank did not issue currency. It did not set interest rates. It did not conduct monetary policy the way a modern central bank does, but it performed the core function. It was the lender of last resort. It was the stable node in a volatile network. And it worked. The Rialto Bank operated for over 200 years. It survived wars. It survived plagues. It survived the collapse of the Venetian economy. It kept the payment system running. The Bank of Amsterdam, founded in 1609, copied the Rialto model directly. The Bank of England, founded in 1694, copied Amsterdam. The Federal Reserve, founded in 1913, copied the Bank of England. The institutional DNA traces back to Venice in 1587. The Rialto Bank also did something else. It created the first recorded public balance sheet. The bank's accounts were published. Depositors saw the reserves. They saw the liabilities. They saw the cash position. This was transparency. It was accountability. And it was a tool for managing trust. Modern central banks operate the same way. The Federal Reserve publishes its balance sheet every week. The European Central Bank does the same. The transparency is a feature, not a bug. It tells the market the institution is solvent. It builds confidence. Confidence keeps the system liquid. Venice built this system in the 1580s during a crisis. The crisis forced the innovation. The innovation became the standard, and the standard spread across the world. Every central bank intervention you see today follows the Venetian playbook. A financial crisis hits. Private institutions fail. The public steps in. It provides liquidity. It stabilizes the system. It guarantees deposits. The crisis passes. The intervention becomes permanent. That is the Federal Reserve in 2008. That is the European Central Bank in 2012. That is the Fed again in 2020. The mechanism is 400 years old. The Rialto Bank was the first iteration. Your central bank is the latest. In 1494, a Franciscan friar named Luca Pacioli published a book in Venice. It was called Summa de Arithmetica, Geometria, Proportioni et Proportionalita. It was 600 pages long. Most of it was mathematics. But one section, 27 pages long, changed the world. That section described double-entry bookkeeping. Pacioli called it the Venetian method. Double-entry accounting is the operating system of every business, every government, and every financial institution in the modern world. It is the reason you know whether a company is making money or losing it. It is the reason audits exist. It is the reason financial statements are comparable across borders and across centuries. And it came from Venice. Here's how it works. Every transaction gets recorded twice. Once as a debit, once as a credit. The two sides balance. If they do not balance, you made an error. The system is self-checking. You buy cloth for 100 ducats. You record a debit to inventory and a credit to cash. Your assets stay the same. You just shifted cash into cloth. The balance sheet balances. You sell the cloth for 150 ducats. You record a debit to cash and a credit to revenue. You also record a debit to cost of goods sold and a credit to inventory. Now you see the profit. Revenue minus cost equals 50 ducats. The income statement shows it. The balance sheet still balances. This system makes financial reality visible. Before double-entry accounting, merchants tracked money in single-entry ledgers. You wrote down what you spent. You wrote down what you earned. You guessed whether you made money. There was no systematic way to track assets, liabilities, and equity simultaneously. Double-entry solved that. It gave you 3 financial statements. The balance sheet shows what you own and what you owe. The income statement shows what you earned and what you spent. The cash flow statement shows where the cash came from and where it went. These 3 statements are the foundation of modern financial reporting. Every company files them. Every government agency uses them. Every investor analyzes them. They exist because Venetian merchants needed a way to track complex trading operations across multiple voyages, multiple partners, and multiple years. Pacioli did not invent the system. He codified it. He wrote it down. He published it. And he explicitly stated that he was describing a method already in widespread use among Venetian merchants. The evidence supports him. Venetian account books from the 1300s show double-entry structures. The records are fragmentary, but the method is visible. Merchants were tracking debits and credits. They were balancing accounts. They were generating financial statements. The Medici Bank in Florence adopted double-entry accounting in the 1400s. Their ledgers survive. Scholars have analyzed them. The Medici system is identical to the system Pacioli described. And the Medici learned it from Venetian merchants. By 1500, double-entry accounting had spread across Europe. By 1600, it was the standard for any serious commercial operation. By 1800, it was the legal requirement for corporations. By 1900, it was the basis of the entire accounting profession. The system scales. A small merchant uses it to track inventory. A large corporation uses it to consolidate subsidiaries across countries. A government uses it to track revenues and expenditures across agencies. The International Monetary Fund uses it to compare national accounts across member states. The structure is the same at every level. Debits equal credits, assets equal liabilities plus equity. The balance sheet balances. This is not just record keeping. This is the infrastructure of trust. And when you invest in a company, you trust the financial statements. When a bank lends money, it trusts the balance sheet. When a government issues bonds, investors trust the accounts. That trust depends on the system being reliable. Double-entry accounting is reliable because it is self-checking. If the books do not balance, something is wrong. You find the error, you fix it. The system forces accuracy. Venice built that system because Venetian merchants were running the most complex financial operations in medieval Europe. They needed a way to track capital across dozens of simultaneous voyages. They needed to know which ventures made money and which lost money. They needed to allocate future capital based on past performance. Double-entry accounting gave them that capability. It made financial reality measurable. Measurable performance became comparable. Comparable performance became competitive. The merchants who used the system outperformed the merchants who did not. The system spread. By the time Pacioli published his book, the Venetian method was already the standard in Venice. His book made it the standard everywhere else. Today, every accounting program, every financial software platform, and every enterprise resource planning system runs on double-entry logic. QuickBooks, SAP, Oracle, they all balance debits and credits. They all generate balance sheets and income statements. They all follow the Venetian method. You use the system every time you check your bank account. The bank tracks your deposits as credits and your withdrawals as debits. The account balances, that is double-entry accounting, it came from Venice, and it runs the world. Venice had no natural resources. No oil, no minerals, no timber, no farmland. It sat on a lagoon with nothing but access to the sea. So it built a different kind of infrastructure, financial infrastructure. The Colleganza gave it a capital market. The Prestiti gave it a bond market. The Galley system gave it state-controlled trade infrastructure. The Arsenal gave it industrial production. The Rialto Bank gave it a central bank. Double entry accounting gave it transparent financial measurement. These were not incremental changes. They were structural inventions. They turned capital into leverage, leverage into control, control into power. For 400 years, Venice ran the most advanced financial system in the world. It financed wars. It built fleets. It controlled trade routes. It collected rents from every transaction that moved between Europe and the East. Then it made a choice. It closed the system. It locked political power to a hereditary class. It stopped rewarding economic success with political access. It turned inclusive institutions into extractive ones, and it died, slowly, over centuries. But the cause was institutional. The Serrata killed the engine. Everything after that was momentum. But the machinery Venice built did not die. It spread. The bond markets, the central banks, the accounting systems, the limited liability structures. They moved to Amsterdam, then to London, then to New York, then to the world. When your government issues bonds, it is using the Venetian model from 1262. When your central bank intervenes in a financial crisis, it is following the Rialto playbook from 1587. When you invest in a company and check the balance sheet, you're reading a document structured by the Venetian method. The Republic of Venice is gone. The system it built is everywhere. It is in your bank account. It is in your government's debt. It is in every stock you own. It is in every financial transaction you make. Venice built the operating system. The world installed it. And it is still running. You live inside the Venetian financial empire. You always have. You just did not know its name.